New York State Association of Counties. It's an organization that's been around for nearly 100 years, providing service, advocacy, resources, and much, much more to New York's county elected and appointed officials.
Is that experience? Is your life experience?
This is the legislative conference. Each year, over 700 county officials from across the state will come to Albany to learn about the state budget process and how it might affect their counties. This year, we are hearing from 200 elected officials, newly elected officials, that have just joined county government. So it'll be a lot discussed here, workshops, meetings, resources. This has been going on for 100 years. This is why we have NYSAC, for the county officials from across the state to get together and help each other, and that's what happens at this conference.
Thank you, Steve, for that introduction.
The big issue that will affect the members attending this legislative conference each year is the impact of the state budget. We have a state budget that equals about $168 billion, and in that $168 billion are local impacts. County governments administer, fund, and are responsible for all federal health and human service programs. So at this conference, we'll learn, we'll hear from state officials, we'll hear from the state budget director about how these funding streams will affect their localities.
The governor has a challenge this year, a large deficit, $4.5 billion, and he's going to need to close that through a combination of revenues, spending reductions, and more efficiencies in government. And a lot of that can trickle down to the county level, so we're keeping an eye on the budget proposal as it works its way through the legislative process.
What are the issues that county government faces when it comes to dealing with this state budget or any state budget?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is unfunded mandates from the county perspective. We're required to do a lot of services for the state on behalf of the state using local resources, but we don't have a lot of control over the program parameters. So that is a big issue for us, and it really is what drives property taxes at the local level.
How does the property tax cap fit into this equation?
Well, it complicates it. It makes it much more difficult to provide discretionary services and also to maintain the state services we're required to do. It's very difficult.
What is the financial pinch that county government is facing when it comes to the state budget?
Well, it's balancing the priorities that you're required to provide under the mandated programs and offering the services in the community that the residents want with limited resources. And we're also dealing with federal impacts that filter through the state budget down to county level.
We were talking about a big budget gap this year, and who's going to close that? And more than likely, we're expecting that the counties are going to have an increased amount of pressure on our own budgets this year to get the state's budget stabilized.
What kind of an impact does that have on county government's ability to deliver services to local residents?
Well, 70% of my dollars in Putnam County goes straight up to New York State, Albany, for the services that we are also mandated to actually run and operate. So it's going to have an incredible impact on us. You know, just timing alone, if they're looking at a mid-year change in responsibilities for some of the financial responsibilities, then my budget has to be delivered by October. We start our budget May, June. So we've got to know way ahead of time what we're facing for the 2019 budget.
I do want to mention that from the standpoint of when we talk about this property tax cap, which originated, so don't throw things at me, it actually originated in the Assembly Republican Conference. However, when we said we wanted to have a property tax cap, we said we have to eliminate the unfunded mandates. And if you look at our proposals, not just on property tax cap and unfunded mandates, but anything that we touch upon in state government, we've got more great policies than I think any other conference in Albany. And if you don't believe it, you can look it up or just contact my office and we'll send you, because the binder is this thick of ideas that will improve New York State on every level. Now, one thing I'm going to share with you today, in prior ideas, we have said that we think it's a good idea for New York State to take over the entire cost of Medicaid. Our conference is going to be rolling out in the next 3 days, or next 30 days, a concrete proposal to do just that. And we're going to share it with both houses of the legislature and the governor. And our plan is upstate, 100% takeover by New York State over 10 years, 50% takeover of New York City over the next 20 years. These are big numbers, but they're affordable. We can do it, we must do it, and it's a comprehensive restructuring of the entire program. Because what I believe is once New York State takes over the total cost and you can reduce your property tax levies, then maybe New York State will do something about making the Medicaid program better, more efficient, more effective, and then also resulting in reduction of the cost of Medicaid rather than Medicaid continue to skyrocket in this state. So you will see an actual detailed plan and how to do it, how it's going to be paid for, the out years. It gets a little bit more difficult if you don't reduce costs. We have to reduce costs. We have to be more effective. And it's not about cutting and slashing services. I'm just going to share one story. I was in New York City last week, and I was talking to some folks that I know, and we're sitting around and having dinner, and one of the gentlemen I was with, his wife works in the healthcare field in the city. And she was saying that they have Medicaid patients that need public transportation or need transportation from their home to the healthcare facility for treatment and then go back home. Understandable. Medicaid coverage. But what Medicaid won't pay for is if they use a subway, a bus, or a taxi or Uber, Medicaid won't pay for it. But if they take a medical transport vehicle, such as an ambulance, Medicaid will pay for it. And this lady said, they're very capable. They're physically able to take public transportation. They could use some help to pay for it, but you're talking about $20 cab ride versus $900 for a medical ambulance. That's precisely the type of waste of taxpayer dollars that runs rampant with this program. And it's not about the patient, it's about the administration of it.
There are a number of things that we've done to help counties, albeit imperfectly. I'm not going to stand here and say that we've done this, yeoman-like, crazy, great job, but I think we've done a number of things in recognition of the challenges that counties face. We are having a very intense, and I'm going to repeat, intense internal discussion between and amongst our members about what we should be doing on Medicaid. What do you do on long-term care? How do you support a system where basically 1/3 of our population is in the Medicaid system? And should that onus and that burden be on the counties? So we are literally, as I'm talking to you, we had discussions about this. Should the state be taking over the cost of that, which would be well over $2 billion to do so? All right, I'll come back and you can clap even louder when we get it done.
It's definitely the unfunded mandates. 80% of our budget in county government is unfunded mandates, from college tuition to a variety of different programs, from Medicaid. That really hurts our operation, especially with the 2% cap, which, we like living in, and we think it's a great initiative, but it's hard as all the expenses continue to rise. Your health care goes up, your insurance goes up, nothing goes down.
The biggest issue that we're facing right now is mandate relief, cost of Medicaid and how it applies to county taxes with the federal tax reform going through. It really puts a damper on property ownership in New York State. And I think the main thing we need to do as counties is to see what we can do to lower property taxes to make home ownership more affordable in New York State.
Beyond the burden that too many New Yorkers have to carry regarding property taxes and the high cost of living in county government, the continued push from Albany of mandated spending really has made and continues to make our job even more difficult. This state forces more of its spending down onto local property taxpayers than any state in America. Add to that some of the uncertainty as it relates to raise the age and our real need to combat opioid and heroin addiction and the crisis that so many face. All of that has made our jobs a little bit more complicated and a little more less predictable.
When the state government tells you they gave you all these new programs, but they don't fund it. So, and then on the federal side, we're looking at SALT and a variety of other things that this new president's changing around, which hurts our operation, So we have to continue to adapt to the different scenarios they're throwing at us and still represent, our people in our county and still deliver these services, improving these services and make the quality of service better with less.
I think what we've heard at the board meeting today is that raising the age of criminal responsibility and what we're going to do in terms of specialized secure detention is a big problem that everyone seems to be focused on.
What I'd like to see is a more true partnership with the state of New York, meaning that if before they do if they want new programs, that they have to fund it. No more unfunded mandates. So, and if they want to increase services, they have to pay for them. Like, raise the age. It's a good thing. We all support raise the age. But the problem with that is it means more money into foster care and probation. Well, last year, the state of New York took $400,000 out of our foster care program. So are they going to fund that back this year? Or are they going to add more funding as we put more people into foster care? Because under raise the age, you're taking these kids out of the house and putting them in the foster care. And we have a foster care epidemic going on here, not just in Albany County, and not just in the state, in this nation, that more and more kids are going into foster care than bigger numbers, but there's not enough families to take them. So that's just a variety of things that we have to deal with that, people don't see that type of operation going on day to day.
The county's been charged with doing this housing under the Raise the Age law by the state of New York. One of the problems that we have is that the timeline for implementation is so tight that the facilities that they want us to create don't yet exist. And so we're seeking guidance from the state and assistance from them in trying to develop these facilities.
It's always about economic development and jobs for our local people, making sure that the people who live in Monroe County, the people who are in the state of New York, have the best opportunity to succeed, and that's with a job. So we want to make sure that our economy is stable and strong, and that we're doing all that we can to attract jobs and companies to Monroe County and New York State, but also to have them expand and stay here for a long, long time.
We have fiscal challenges like most counties around the state, different pressures financially certainly caused by the tax bill that's coming out of Washington for Long Island. That will be devastating. We're looking at essentially a massive tax increase for Long Islanders, something that could hurt jobs, housing, and a number of different issues in our economy. So that is a huge issue for us.
One of the things that certainly companies always look at is what is the tax structure in the state of New York. And so when we look at that, we have to look to the state to ensure that the state is doing all it can do to hold its line on taxes, to make sure that the state becomes more competitive for jobs and companies to come here. We're doing all that we can on a local level, and we certainly mind our pocketbooks to encourage businesses to look at Monroe County in a favorable light. We've done a good job in 2017. We're looking to do even more in 2018. But we need to make sure that the state really holds the line on spending and unfunded mandates as well, because those are deterrents for job attraction and job development in the state of New York.
The opioid drug crisis is a is a very big one on everybody's list right now. Paying attention. As a matter of fact, this morning we read that Orange County lost 4 people to it, to drug overdoses. So I think that's a big one.
The opiate epidemic is still a serious problem across all of New York State, upstate and downstate. We often talk about differences between upstate and downstate. There's no difference when it comes to the opiate epidemic. It's affecting people in New York City. It's affecting people and killing people on Long Island, just like it is in Western New York and in the Adirondack region. I'd like to think that we're in a little better shape than we were, at least in how we address it, but unfortunately we're still seeing growth across the state with regards to opiate overdoses as well as opiate overdose deaths. Thankfully, in my home community of Erie County, we've been able to stem the tide and basically keep it the same as the year before, but that still means that there's approximately 300 people in Erie County who died in 2017 from an opiate overdose. So it's an issue that we're all working on, and unfortunately it's not done yet.
What needs to happen, and what role does a county government play?
County governments often play the lead because they are the health departments. They offer the mental health services, the addiction services. So when it comes to how government has a role, county governments in some ways are the leading entity. New York State will set the law, will provide funds. The federal government can provide funds, hasn't recently. It's one of the things we're really advocating for is more federal dollars. But it's the local governments that are implementing it, the local governments that are approving and creating new treatment facilities, the local governments that are approving new medication-assisted treatment facilities. And then we're also out there coordinating the services between the not-for-profits as well as the other organizations that are involved in the fight to eliminate this scourge.
I think state leaders need to take responsibility for the burden that they place onto local governments and just own up to it, acknowledge that fact, and from there, reach out to local leaders. We're the laboratories of experiment. We're the ones on the road trying to solve problems and help people. And I think if the state were to acknowledge the burden they place on us and then work with us in a collaborative way, they'd find that we're really good partners. And at the end of the day, we can provide really good success and really good solutions to taxpayers.
What I'd really like to see is more of a cooperative effort between Albany and state government and counties. We're all on the same side, we're all in public service, and we're all trying to do the best we can for the residents and taxpayers in New York State. And over the past few years, there's been sort of a finger pointing nationally as well as in Albany, and I don't think that's productive. I think we can find common ground.
We need to work together in a collaborative fashion with Albany to address the real needs at the local level of government. You know, we're really where the rubber meets the road at the county, and you know, the state is a critical partner. You know, we've been working closely with Governor Cuomo on a number of big projects that are going to have a really positive impact on our economy in Suffolk County, like double track and third track, creating greater connectivity between New York City and the island, and allowing us to grow the economy out there.
Now more than ever, and I've been in this business a long time, since the 90s, 14 years on a town board, county clerk, time in Congress, now lieutenant governor. Now more than ever, we need a partnership between our county officials, our local officials, and state government. Because for the first time in my lifetime, as someone who was counsel to Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan in Washington, at an era when I saw a lot of statesmanship, a lot of bipartisan collaboration. We worked on the drug bill, we worked on infrastructure, we worked on immigration in a bipartisan way, if you can believe that. Today, it's a different environment, and I'm not going to go into politics. I'm just simply going to talk about the fact that New York State has been under assault in ways that we could not have imagined. And we need to team up together to continue fighting for infrastructure dollars, transportation dollars, social services dollars, healthcare dollars, all the things that make the quality of life for our citizens better. So we're under assault, but I feel, as the governor does, and you'll hear from him tonight on this message, that we have to continue to find ways to collaborate as one team, one New York. And I know we can do this, because there is far more that joins us than separates us when it comes to issues. And I have a list of a few issues I want to talk to you about. One of them is to find more ways to bring revenue dollars into the coffers of the counties so you can help keep down your tax burden. And the question is, why have we allowed internet sales to go untaxed when they're competing with little businesses like my mother's flower shop that she started a long time ago. Why not help do that? Thank you. Thank you for being a leader on this. This association has spearheaded this issue, and this is something that the governor believes can direct $100 million, if we do it right, into county coffers all over. So it's part of our initiative. The governor rolled this out, and we're going to need your support. You need to talk to your legislators here in Albany to make sure we can get that done. So thank you for that initiative and working together with us.
I want to pick up on one word that your president offered, and that's a word of commendation to your NYSAC executive director and really the entire NYSAC staff team. Steve Aquario is a constant presence in the Capitol. You're here periodically for conferences and gatherings like this, but he's here all the time. And he and his team really do an outstanding job advocating for the interests of New York's counties and county officials day in and day out. They have a wonderful relationship with our office, even when he could be a bit of a nudge. We welcome his calls and his advocacy. Give Steve and his team another round of applause for everything they do for you. And to all the officers and leaders of NYSAC, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I know we had hands up, and I know we have many new elected officials. I'm told over 190 new county elected officials. Wow, that's great. It shows county government is still the place to be, and I was very pleased to be greeted earlier by a former colleague of mine from the legislature, former Senator, former Assembly Member George Latimer, now the county exec of Westchester County. So it's great to see, here for Westchester. Congratulations to all of you who are newly elected, those of you who are returning elected. Part of your prize for winning your election is being part of this great organization, being part of NYSAC. And the same goes for those of you who are appointed county officials. I know many of you are there fulfilling your public service as an appointed official. It's so much easier when you get the job without having to run for it, believe me. So it's great that you're here as well. NYSAC is certainly one of the strongest and most effective voices here in the state capitol. And there's no better example of the effectiveness of the organization than this annual legislative conference, consistently one of the most informative and important meetings here in Albany. I certainly have an appreciation for the effort that our local officials put in and day out, the political pressures that you face, competing priorities. Obviously, budget challenges are always an issue for you to face, yet you continue to get the job done for your counties and for your communities. You are on the front lines of our government. You play a critical role, and certainly from the perspective of the Comptroller's Office, we want to help you succeed.
And place themselves into charter law, meaning we're going to run our government according to...
What are the benefits of elected officials coming to this legislative conference? What would they gain from it?
Well, they can talk to each other. For one, communication is very powerful. It gives us an opportunity to talk to each other statewide, share each other's issues and challenges, and then talk about solutions and our responsibilities as elected officials to the people that we govern.
Tell us, what have you learned by coming to these sessions over the years that have made you a better county executive?
There's so much that you take away after 2 or 3 days up here. You not only have the information that you need to take back to your constituents, but you also have an understanding of how government in New York State can work when it works effectively and efficiently.
I'm a newly elected legislator from the County of Ulster, and I wanted to attend the NYSAC conference to learn how governments interact on a state and local level.
What have you learned so far?
I've learned that Committee on Open Government is an excellent resource. Bob Freeman gave an excellent speech regarding FOIL and Committee on Open Government, budgeting, and how it also relies on the state as well.
As a newly elected county legislator, coming to the NYSAC is to gather all the information so that we can actually perform our duties in the new position. Basically, to get the education, to get the background, to get the networking, to answer questions on anything that we may not understand, or to look for the information that will help us to be successful in doing our jobs.
What have you learned today? What workshops have you attended?
I have done a lot of the new elected, so we've gone over the government, we've gone over finances, we've gone over the ethics, We've gone over the different roles and the positions that we all take. Some of the programs that NYSAC is trying to work on as far as environmental or the food, the criminal justice system, our taxes.
How valuable have these workshops been for you?
I think they've been very informative. It gives you a new perspective, and it gives you the opportunity where you can talk to other people who are seasoned, who have been here before, who work on it every single day, and they specialize on the different areas of government that you really need to be able to understand in order to do your job efficiently and represent the people.
I'm newly elected county official from Lewis County legislature, and I came to this conference to try to gain a little bit more knowledge. I have very little political experience, so I'm just trying to get a few tips and some insight into how this whole operation works, I guess.
What areas are you looking to learn about?
Well, I'm right now primarily interested in economic development and veterans affairs, and also some of the recreation things that are involved with it.
I found it extremely valuable. The connections you make and also the information that is disseminated to us is very valuable.
I came here today because I'm a newly elected official for Madison County, and I'm very eager to learn and very interested in NYSAC and what they have to offer.
Tell us how valuable are the training workshops and seminars that NYSAC offers?
Well, I've never been, but just looking at the agenda, they seem very interesting and very informative, so I'm really excited to get started.
Why is training important for newly elected officials?
Well, I think it gives a good background, and it gives a good start for any newly elected official.
My background was I really worked in law school admissions and also taught at a community college, taught paralegalism. What I've learned today so far is really about the open meetings law, the executive session laws, about the budgeting process, and about the county government.
When I first got elected, I came to NYSAC for networking opportunities and the exhibits, meeting people, and the seminars were really great as well. I'm the chair of public safety for my county, so there's always something relevant for me to learn here.
What have you learned here from NYSAC that has made you a better legislator?
I think that, you know, when you think you're the only county with a certain problem and you can come here and talk with other elected officials and realize that everybody's in the same boat and we all have the same issues, and if we work together we can usually find a resolution.
I came to the conference to get best practices from all around the state. As a new county executive, I want to learn what other legislatures, what other county executives all over the state are doing and see what we can model, what works for us.
What have you learned so far during the training sessions?
I just had my first seminar. It was very interesting about communication. And as a former newspaper reporter, this is something I'm aware of on the other side. Now as a newly elected executive, how to communicate effectively and how to be credible when you do it. It was very valuable.
What are your goals as a new county executive?
Restoring trust in government, getting our financial house in order, and growing our tax base.
I'm a newly elected official. My name is Carly, and I came to NYSAG because it's helping me get on board as a legislator. I am by trade an occupational therapist and have always been interested in local government. And
what have you learned so far?
So we're learning about policies, procedures, forums, what to expect with executive sessions, and when you can hold an executive session.
How valuable is all this that you've learned so far?
Well, it's wonderful. It gives me a great resource of contacts of people if I have questions, to be able to do my job correctly and to help others do their job correctly as a team player.
I think obviously any county in New York State is faced with high taxes. We are one of the highest taxed and yet poorest counties in the state of New York, Sullivan County where I'm from. So we struggle a lot with keeping people fed and clothed and housed, but also trying to create economic development and growth at the same time.
I think shared services is one that I'm very interested in seeing how we at the local level can assist with saving money with the shared services. Also the implementation of Raise the Age and how that affects our local municipalities as well.
Property taxes, shared services are a big issue. continuing to find revenue and being sure that our sales tax is proportionate to what the towns need.
When I first came, it was really overwhelming. There's a lot of information. There are so many different things involved in county government. So I came to learn more and understand the process a little bit better, and to see how that is interworking with the state legislature, how we advance certain resolutions up to the state to look at more closely. And it's just been a really great learning experience.
Within the framework that you're given. So my name is Ellie Nieves. I'm with the Leadership Strategies for Women, and my goal today is to speak to the Women's Leadership Council at NYSAC about how important it is to continue to engage in public service. Clearly, it's a sign of the times that so many people are engaged politically. We've got more people that are civic-minded and want to participate in the public process. And women bring a unique perspective to the table. And it's important that they continue to get engaged, that we can see their leadership and we can hear their voices as the process continues to unfold.
Your reaction to NYSAC putting an emphasis in creating the Women's Leadership Council?
So this is just part of a greater movement that we're seeing across the country. I had the pleasure of actually speaking at the National Association of County Organizations just this past summer. So we're seeing this not only at the local level, but we're seeing it nationally. It clearly is something that's very important to get our women engaged and to hear their voices in the process.
What is it that you'd like to say to women that may be watching this program, that may be considering it but not ready to take the plunge?
I encourage them to get educated about what the process is. I encourage them to find their voice by identifying those issues that resonate most with them and with people in their community. And I encourage them to get involved and just to take that one small step. It doesn't mean that you have to immediately file for a particular position, but start learning about what are the positions that are available in an elected office in their local community, and just start showing up at some of the public meetings. Start listening for cues that might incentivize them to want to get involved and participate.
We are so excited about the Women's Leadership Council, which was instituted because of the Women's Suffrage Act and all of that throughout the state of New York. So we started our little group here in Albany County, which has been phenomenal. And working here with the NYSAC staff and Mr. Aquario, the executive director, we were lucky enough to get a prize for our first year out, and we're all excited about that.
The Women's Council has been really encouraging and inspiring to me to be around other women leaders. There aren't too many of us up in the North Country where I come from, so it's really nice to have that camaraderie here at NYSAC.
Have you seen an increase in interest by women to get involved in county government?
Absolutely, yes. I just saw 3 of my friends get elected in our home county. And I know there are women all over the place that are really getting excited about it and taking the initiative to run and not being so afraid to run.
The NYSAC Women's Council is a great opportunity for women in government, as well as elected officials in government, to come together as women and talk about women's issues. And so we can come to the table and bring those women's issues out within the NYSAC conference.
It's been invaluable. I have been coming for many years, and I always take back information to my counties. I, many years ago, joined a couple of the boards just so I could, the committees, just so I could even have more attention and more knowledge of what, and I actually went on committees that are outside my realm. I didn't just go on taxation and finance. I did economic development. I just left public safety because I think you need to know a lot more about your county except for just one little area. So NYSAC helps me with all of that.
Several years ago, the president of the association, with some urging from a few key people in the organization, Tom Santulli, created the egg task force. That, there were several issues that we were looking at that time, as we still are, some of which are, the low prices, consumer advocacy. So as that transitioned over a couple of years, we now have a standing committee on agriculture, which we're going to have a meeting here today to talk about the issues. And a couple of the issues we're going to talk about are the facets associated with the state budget, which include funding for several key programs, namely probably the largest user of state funding would be Cornell University. A major force in agriculture in not only in New York State but across the country as well. Agriculture is the #1 economic industry in New York State, believe it or not, even more powerful than Wall Street. So that being the #1 industry in the state, it certainly carries nationwide as well.
What are some of the biggest issues facing agriculture in New York?
Price of product. I know myself, being a dairy farmer, price of milk continues to hover at unsustainable levels. And, you know, it's just, there's so many products that are made from milk, butter, ice cream, cheese. You know, it's just hard to fathom why, you know, the market continues to be such a wild fluctuation, but tends to be more down than up.
Tell us about the need for more people to get into, particularly young people, to get involved in agriculture as a career.
Well, there are a lot of different careers that are associated with agriculture, not just you know, actually working the ground or milking cows or taking care of livestock. The support industries, the feed, fertilizer, seed, communications, IT is all very important and continues to be a big part of what agriculture needs in order to maintain its national presence statewide, nationally, and locally.
Before we get started, the Public Safety Committee is very important to NYSAC, and public safety and not only covers the county jail and the sheriff's law enforcement services, but also our court security, our probation departments, alternatives to incarceration, and our Office of Emergency Management. And all of those things are very important. And we do so much in county government related to public safety that this committee does a lot of good work.
What are some of the biggest issues in public safety facing sheriffs and county government throughout the state of New York?
Well, we continue to have to deal with several areas of what they often refer to as unfunded mandates. And we've got things, more burdens are being placed on our probation departments now to do more services, but with less money being refunded by the state. Same goes true with some of the county jail services that we're mandated to do. And so we're very concerned about this loss of revenue.
What would you like people to keep in mind about the importance of public safety throughout the state of New York 52 weeks of the year?
Well, public safety is one of the first initial parts of government. Government is for the protection of its people, its public safety, and its public health. And those are very paramount to government county services.
Our seminar today deals with the Medicaid and Human Services portion of the program. We're actually quite pleased to report that the Medicaid administrative cap is being preserved in the budget as it's proposed, so please make sure everyone fights and make sure that there's no changes in that Medicaid administrative dollars for all the local districts. That actually will give you stability in your Medicaid program, and as everybody knows from recent history, that's a program that you can have lots of ups and downs, and you really can't budget that logically through any amount of time. And this stabilized out all of our risks that we had at the county level. This is actually one of your greatest liability issues in county government. Folks who need health insurance, we all become responsible for that if there's an emergency, and this particular program has really stabilized it out, so your risk and your liability you can actually count and figure out, and able to, for the first time ever, to budget for that. So the Medicaid cap needs to be preserved, and we need to go forward knowing exactly what our weekly shares are going to be.
The state budget is for some increased funding for these home and community-based services.
Our workshop today is on the future of senior services in New York. That's a lot dealing with home and community-based services, critical programs that keep older New Yorkers at home and help their family caregivers take care of them.
With an aging population in the state of New York, what is your recommendation to county government?
So what we are trying to do right now is increase funding in the state budget for services that are provided by the counties through the State Office for the Aging, and these are really simple programs like home and community-based services, Meals on Wheels, other home-delivered meal programs, access to transportation to go to doctor's offices, things that are really simple, help people stay at home longer, out of nursing homes where they're spending Medicaid dollars, and really just keep them contributing to the local economy and in their homes where they want to be.
The biggest priority continues to be mandates from the state government that are unfunded. That seems to be the biggest issue. We have a resolution once again today on that issue. Also, the taxation of internet sales tax. Local business, small businesses are losing business because of internet sales, and so another major issue is to attempt for the state to impose a tax on internet companies like Amazon and those types of large companies. That would create needed revenues for the counties. We have our expenses keep going up, but revenues seem to decline. So the biggest thing would be increased revenues to balance our budgets. I can speak for Saratoga County. It's still doing well, but I think there's a lot of upstate counties that are not doing well, having to increase taxes in order to maintain their revenue source. I think maybe downstate may be a little bit different. Employment is higher down there. We have higher unemployment upstate. So, but I think overall New York is doing okay, but we can always do better.
Over to our esteemed presenters.
Our workshop today is the topic of shared services, which is really local government working together to try to save taxpayers money and provide a more efficient delivery of those services.
How does it work?
Well, it works in a lot of ways, and I wouldn't say there's a one-size-fits-all, but it starts from the ground up with some good ideas on how we can work together and share, build upon our strengths, and try to ultimately save taxpayers money in the long run.
Give us some examples of how this is working in New York.
Sure. Well, Montgomery County, for example, has a whole host of initiatives, 11 to be exact, that we're working on right now. Everything from village dissolutions to sharing of equipment to sharing of salt storage facilities. We really have a wide variety of initiatives we're working on, and it all depends on what the needs are in the local municipalities. So there certainly isn't a one-size-fits-all, but you really look at what the situation is on the ground and try to find solutions that can work for everyone.
How does this benefit county officials and taxpayers?
Well, everything we can do to help stay under the tax cap is something that's incredibly important. And with the rising costs of local government and some of the mandates that come down from the state, these initiatives are really imperative to help us keep moving forward and still deliver the services that we need to deliver.
But they always assure us.
The title of our workshop is The Impact of the Tax Cap and What Would Happen If It Were to Become Permanent, and the impacts on county governments in New York State. We did a survey in April of 2017 of all local governments in New York State to look at the impacts of the tax cap, and we found that it's leading to a reduction in infrastructure funding and a reduction in long-term planning for the future economic growth of the state. And so this is quite concerning that the tax cap is having a negative impact on our ability to fund critical infrastructure and long-term planning. We also asked local governments if they had recommendations for reforms of the tax cap, and some of the reforms, the most important one was to exempt capital expenditures so that we could address that infrastructure problem, and also to exempt expenditures for emergencies and disaster response, which obviously we need to do, and to exempt pensions, and then to include in the growth factor the really important nonprofit sector. We have a lot of meds and eds in our economy, and we need to include the growth of that critical sector in our economy in our estimations of the growth factor, and right now those are excluded.
One of the big issues that we have facing all the counties is the opioid problem that we have with the drugs and overdosing, and it's a problem for our jails, it's a problem for our communities, and it's a big issue for every single county in the state right now.
What can local government do at the county level on this issue?
Well, right now we're working with our health departments, we're working with our sheriff's departments, and we're trying to bring plans together, and it's a tough nut to crack. It's not an easy one to solve.
What assistance would be beneficial from both Albany and Washington?
The assistance that we need is the money that needs to come into our areas to help fight these issues. That's one of the problems when you don't have enough money to do the housing for people and to have programs to help them get away from the drug problems. That's one of the issues.
There are a number of very professional county executives here, and new tools, the new technology tools which they have to apply can dramatically improve the quality of life in their communities. So it's basically a message that the transformative opportunities to make government more responsive today because of these tools are greater than any time in the last century.
Give us some examples of what some cities have done to be innovative.
Well, cities and counties all across the country, including in the state of New York, are using these tools to increase outreach to communities, right, to involve more collaborative discussions, to do more personalization, to do more predictive analytics, to identify a pothole before it occurs rather than after, to identify a water leak that's about to happen rather than after. So it's the personalization, customization, and effectiveness of public services.
What recommendations do you have for county officials in New York that has a mix of both urban and rural counties?
Well, the good news is that technologies today are widely available because of cloud computing. It's not just a New York City county that can do these activities. Any city or county can. The issue is that government's designed one way. It's designed to be very routine and very control-oriented, and yet we now have tools that allow our public employees to be smarter and better than ever before. So the message is evaluate the tools that solve problems best for your community and don't be thwarted in their application by kind of the old ways that we manufacture government. This is from LA City and County. It's actually a website that and a service that's both city and county. But they took they both use an Esri GIS platform, and they began to map all of their public data, make it all available with GIS coordinates, so that if you're in the county or you're in the city or you're in a neighborhood, then you can see everything that's happening in that neighborhood. So think about the Parks Department worker that's trimming a tree at 10th and Main at the same time the Department of Transportation is setting up a barricade because they're fixing the pavement or whatever the case may be, right? You can find those things out in your counties, but it should be a lot easier. And one of the things that LA found is that using a GIS open data hub, we think about open data as helping our residents see what's happening in government, but it actually helps our employees see what's happening in another agency much more easily than the path that's available today. So this GIS hub, it's basically kind of off-the-shelf software. And I run a program at Harvard for chief data officers from 25 large cities and counties, and they're able then to share insights from county to county and city to city. Well, we found this out with the data. Here's how we set up the algorithms. We can share them from city to city and county to county. And then if we think about this interoperability, FirstNet is an example of that as well. Certainly when I was in New York City, and even today in many places, emergency responders have great difficulty communicating with each other in the sense of disaster. Another way to think about this smarter public employee activity is both in Westchester County using dashboards to manage their probation departments, and in Philadelphia using data analytics to manage their probation departments, right? The issue is we have too many cases to manage and too few people to manage them, right? There's no county in the U.S. that has too much money for the public services that it needs to do, right? So the question becomes, how do we have the best possible probation worker assigned to the case where he or she can make the most difference, right? Because some of those probationers are going to behave no matter what. Some are not going to behave no matter what. Some are in the center whose behavior can be influenced, and some of their behavior can be influenced more by one type of probation officer with one type of experience than another, right? So how do we use data to manage those caseloads so that we have a better chance for, right, the goal would be for every ounce of public energy, public employee energy that we have, how do we allocate that resource in a way that makes a positive change for our county? And this slide suggests we use data analytics to better align where we can make a difference, to better align, many of you have nonprofit contracts that you use for social services. which of those providers is particularly effective, which are particularly effective with various demographics and the like. So how do we use data to make our public employees better?
In Boston, they have laptops in the fire trucks and they get a blueprint of the building before they're there. And I say, exactly, that's what you want. Yes, that's what we want. Okay, so let's go upstream. Let's see how the data's collected right now. How are the blueprints collected? Well, they're in paper. Okay, well, where are they? They're in boxes in the office. Some of them are in PDFs. Okay, well, PDF you can't really. So what we do is we take them through the cycle and say, you want to be here? We got to start here. We've got to go through this whole process. And then it starts to illuminate how important this back end work is. And that's the boring part of me.
So NYMER is the New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal, and we write property and casualty insurance for 33 of New York's counties.
How has your program saved money for counties and taxpayers?
Well, we focus just on local government risk in New York. So we have counties, city, towns, and villages, but by understanding the operations of county government, we think we can manage those risks and exposures, and in so doing, we reduce both the frequency and the severity of the claims that come through.
What kind of results have you seen for counties and for their employees?
Yeah, so this is our 25th year. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary year this year, and we've seen a dramatic decrease in the frequency of claims over that 25-year history.
And does that result in a savings for taxpayers?
Yes, it has. Most importantly, at a stabilized rate, so our number one goal is to bring stability to pricing, because municipal budgets do not handle volatility very well at all. But in the process, we've also started to drive rates down steadily over the 25 years of our history.
Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance, better known as MEGA, is an aggregator of power. We pool the power needs for municipalities for electric and gas, and we go out to bid for those municipalities. We have been working with NYSAC for the last 15 years, formerly for the last 10 years, and we now represent over 33 counties and a number of towns, cities, and villages, school districts in the state, and we go out to bid for them. We meet the requirements of the state for their bidding requirements, and we then offer those best prices that we can get because of the volume of electricity and gas that we represent. We offer the best prices to those partners.
How do county officials and county taxpayers benefit from this?
Well, of course, it's a straight benefit because the cost of your electric and gas is less, which of course equates to lower taxes because of those lower energy costs. We've saved counties millions of dollars over the last 10 years.
Chase & Companies is an engineering and environmental consulting firm. We help a lot of municipalities with their grant writing or any kind of engineering services that they may need, or community planning, economic development, things of that nature.
What kind of response have you had from NYSAC members?
We've had actually a very good response from NYSAC members. We've been coming here for as long as I can remember, and we have made some very good connections here and made some very good, nice partnerships as well.
We offer energy efficiency services to counties.
How many years have you been coming to NYSAC, and what kind of response have you had so far?
This is our 4th year for this conference, and we're here to establish some relationships. So the response has been very good, and we've learned about the issues that are facing the counties in New York State.
My message is that NYSAC has partnered with Ralph Benefits to create the Municipal Healthcare Financing Collective, which can help reduce healthcare expenses, stop-loss expenses, administration, and prescription drugs. And it may be eligible for shared services. So that's our message.
How has it worked so far?
We have just kicked it off, and based upon the early information, it will have saved over $1 million for 7 counties on $5 million of stop-loss premium.
And what's going to be the benefit to county employees?
The ability to keep their existing benefit plans and save money at the same time. So it's reducing expenses without having to change your benefits and reduce your coverage.
And for county government?
It's all about the money. It's about reducing fixed expenses and participating together to reduce future expenses. We've been coming to these NYSAC conferences for over 10 years, helping counties find a way to improve business and to keep their citizens safe.
What kind of response have you had from the county so far?
We like working with the counties because that's where the real people's work gets done, right down in the counties where the services are delivered.
NYSAC, I've been active in NYSAC since I started in this position 13 years ago, and it has been invaluable to me in terms of learning both my job as well as the environment in which we operate as counties.
This is my 4th year, and I participated in the Public Safety Committee, and there's a couple items that I'm really interested in with the raise the age, with the criminal justice area, and also with a crisis that's happening all across upstate New York, which is the shortage of EMS workers, and how we're going to attract people into this field and provide this needed service for our communities.
Local government affects you more than what's going on in Washington. Although everything that's going on in Washington takes up all the oxygen, who fills your potholes, who hires your cops, who's taking care of the parks, who's taking care of the roads, that really affects your day-to-day life.
Local government affects your life every day, and it's so important that residents, you pay attention to the national news, pay attention to statewide politics, but at the end of the day, it's your village mayor, it's your town supervisor, it's your county legislator, your county government that's on the road trying to provide services every single day. And most importantly, I think New Yorkers, local residents, all need to understand they have a voice, and in local government, that voice can be heard.
Well, the importance of county government, certainly government that's closest to the people is the government that serves the people best. And people look to their county government for leadership. They look to the county government for quality of life. They look to the county government to protect their interests as well. And coming to a convention like NYSAC gives us the opportunity as county leaders to come together as one New York State to best advocate for the people here in New York State. So we learn a lot. We bring a lot of good information back to our counties. But best of all, we work together as a state to advocate on behalf of the people of New York State.
County governments are critically important. We tend to be kind of low-key, but county governments provide incredible services for everything from county clerks, county treasurers, property tax records, running of jails, public safety with sheriff's departments, highways. We maintain all the roads and bridges in our municipalities, and we do it in a very effective and cost-efficient way. Most people don't realize really how cost efficient we are.
We are the boots on the ground, that we are the people that are accessible and available to people if they have issues to come to your local legislators and get some answers.
There are no separations in government. We are all in this together, and working with our county officials tonight in a social setting, a chance to celebrate the great agricultural products and from our beverage industries. It's an opportunity to say we have a lot of great things going for us here in the state of New York, and they should be proud to be New Yorkers.
Well, county governments are a very important unit of local government in New York State. We are the workhorse unit of local government, providing all the state's functions locally. We deliver all of the state services at the local government level. So it's important for these officials to come together here, learn about shared services, talk amongst each other, what works in Western New York and how can Northern New York or the Lower Hudson Valley or Long Island or the Southern Tier, the Mohawk Valley, all across the state. These officials are here to help themselves, help each other, help the state, help our taxpayers.
Your reaction to everything that you've seen and heard over the course of the sessions?
Well, what we hear constantly is we are doing our job efficiently, but how can we do it better? Local government officials are always striving to do things better, more cost efficient, cost effective. How can we better serve our taxpayers and our citizens? We heard from our keynote speaker this year about innovation in government. How can technology help advance public services and help deliver them more efficiently to the public? Those are the kind of things that we heard coming out of this conference.
If people have questions like more information about NYSAC, what should they do?
They should call 518-465-1473 or www.nysac.org.